If you want to get early access to all of our daily videos, please consider joining our Patreon. I'll put a link below. Here it is on the screen. Again, you get early access to all the daily videos, ad-free, early, before anyone else gets to see them. Have at it. And you can help support the channel. Okay, y'all. We have a very, very exciting video for y'all today. You've seen the title. You've seen the thumbnail. Let's jump into this thing. Scientist Jack Sarfati has an email list. All right, it's a famous email list, which I've actually been thrown on to months ago. I finally got out of it, but for a while there, I was on it, and all these emails were going through with all these people, okay? Tons of people in the UFO community. I don't want to say all the names, but just anyone and everyone you can think of, all together on this list, mixed with podcasters and whatever, and just all kinds of information. I had to get out of it because I was just getting so many emails a day, and it was really just a lot of fighting, right? But Jack Sarfati just posted an email from a gentleman named Ron Pandolfi. Now, if you're not familiar with who he is, we're going to be diving into that in today's video because I didn't know much about him, to be honest with you. I've heard his name here and there and it's thrown out, but now I found out a lot more doing this video. So Jack Sarfati puts out this email from Ron Pandolfi, which, again, I had seen him in these email chains and everyone just fighting and all of this. So, but it's what Ron said in this email that was fascinating. So let's take a look at this email that Jack Sarfati posted on February 26, 2025 at 11:20 a.m. Ronald Pandolfi wrote, "Hi, Jack. Linking your theoretical physics to fraud was a very costly error. The U.S. Navy did not disclose Tic-Tac. That was from a German fictional film project that Elizondo pulled from the internet, burned on a DVD, and then handed to Chris Mellon in a remote part of the Pentagon parking lot. Chris Mellon lied to the NYT, the New York Times, claiming that it was an official disclosure from the U.S. Department of Defense to his To the Stars Academy. It was not. Chris Mellon further lied that the disclosure included a record of transfer similar to a legal document. The only record of transfer was a used brown paper lunch bag with the DVD handed off in exactly the part of the Pentagon parking lot where enlisted would commonly share corn." I have to say it that way. "There was a time when your book, Destiny Matrix, was proudly displayed in a large United States government library. There was a time when your emails were shared among serious people within the IC and DOD. Embracing fraud is not the same as committing fraud, but the implications are shared. There's a common perception that if you link to fraud, then your work must be fraud. I know that is not the case with your work, and I'm frustrated that you link your work to the loons and crooks. Ron." So I had to say corn because it's something else. I just don't want to get flagged here. But adult content, let's put it that way, right? That's what I meant by that. So this is shots fired right here from Ron Pandolfi. There's a lot of accusations made. Now you may be saying, who is Ronald Pandolfi? How can he even say these things? Well, we're going to get into that in just a second. But basically, let's go over what the accusations are, right? First of all, he's talking about the Tic-Tac video, which is this video right here that I'm showing on the screen. This is from the 2004 Navy incident that Commander David Fravor testified before Congress about, right? He's saying that was from a German fictional film project, all right? That video that Elizondo pulled from the internet, burned on a DVD, and then gave it to Chris Mellon, right? And then Chris Mellon lied. I mean, he's basically throwing a lot of accusations at Chris Mellon and Lou Elizondo, and that the video isn't real. But what about the other two videos, right? We'll get into more of that in just a second. So this is crazy, right? What are we saying here? Anyone else saying this, you just wave it off, right? But this is Ronald Pandolfi, and you may be, again, wondering, who is this guy? Well, let's jump into that. But first, before we do that, let's look at the Tic-Tac video, right? This was officially recognized by the Navy. They put out a press release. It's right here. You can see it. I'll put a link in the description, sort of admitting, yeah, these are ours, declassified. So what are we talking about? This doesn't make any sense. Why would the Navy put out a press release saying that it was theirs if it wasn't, right? So they clearly took ownership of the 3 videos that got released, right? One from 2004 and 2 videos from 2015, right? The Go Fast, FLIR, and Gimbal videos, right? So in the FLIR video is from the 2004 Tic-Tac incident, like I said, with Commander David Fravor. And listen to Commander David Fravor talk to Joe Rogan about the video. Do you think this video is fake?
Jamie, we have the video? Okay, here we go. Now, explain what are we seeing and why are we seeing it in this this particular
okay,
shade?
so we'll just kind of go around. So if you look at the OPRs operate in the top left corner. NAR is narrow field of view, which is zoomed in. IR at the top middle, it means it's in infrared mode. So instead of seeing color, you're seeing temperature variations. Okay. And these things are extremely sensitive to in like tenths of degrees. They will tell you the difference due to color. So it'll go from black to white. So in this case, white is hot. So if you look down in the bottom left corner, it says WHT. That's white. That means white is hot. So the object that you're looking at is hotter than the sky around it. But what you also notice is there's no plumes. Now, if you're looking at an airplane, when you get closer, you'll actually see the exhaust coming out, and there will be a really glowing plume. That's important as we look at the video.
So I don't know. If you ask me, this seems like, a real video from that incident. I don't know why Ron Pandolfi is saying that. Commander David Fravor describing the video, things that are on it, is clearly a real, video, right? Not saying it's aliens in it. I'm just saying it's not a made-up video. It's not from some German film project. In my opinion, why would Commander David Fravor talk about it, the video like this, and testify to it, right, as well? This doesn't make any sense. Why would the Navy put out a press release acknowledging it? If it wasn't theirs, they would readily admit it. In fact, they'd be probably happy to admit it's not theirs, right? So this is a strange shot across the bow, as they say. But let's jump into who Ron Pandolfi is, because this is a can of worms. I don't know if you're ready for it. So according to Ron's email signature, right, in this thread, Ron describes himself as being part of this foundation right here, the Kashmir World Foundation. The Kashmir World Foundation is a global network of dedicated volunteers, including seasoned professionals and driven students, united by a shared commitment to positive change. We believe in the power of teamwork and cooperation to shape a brighter tomorrow. Our primary goal is to unite individuals from diverse countries and cultures to save endangered species through innovative applications of autonomous robotic systems and computer science. Together with the best and most passionate minds, we strive to make a lasting impact on preserving our planet's most endangered wildlife. And when you hear that, you think, oh, that sounds great, right? This sounds very cool. Now, Ron Pandolfi is the guy in the bottom right-hand corner, and in the bottom left is his wife. We'll get more about her in just a second. But on the website here, Ron is described as the Chief Technology Officer, right? For over 40 years of experience in surveillance, communications, robotics, aircrafts, and weapons systems. All right. So there's a lot there that this guy is a part of, right? Now you may be thinking, what is this? How does this guy know anything about, UFOs, or why is he speaking with Jack Sarfati, and why is he making these assumptions about Chris Mellon, Lou Elizondo, the Tic-Tac, and calling out Commander David Fravor for being honest, right, at the same time by saying that? Well, it turns out Ronald Pandolfi isn't just with the Kashmir World Foundation. He also either worked or still works for the CIA.
I'm now in this back and forth engagement with Ron Pandolfi. And Ron Pandolfi is the supposed head of the Weird Desk, and he can be very mean, and he's, and what he says constantly is loons, crooks, and worse. And of course, he calls me a crook because I steal his quotes and I put them in books. And I say, well, that's how it works. You take quotes and you footnote them and you put them in the book. That's how it works. And you take his story where I caught him on tape. I think that's why he's so angry at me he calls me a crook, is because I got this tape that he and his wife put on the internet, where he's talking about the portal, where he says, people have always wondered what it's like to go into the next world. There's been a breakthrough. The next time John, who's his friend sitting beside him, next time John goes to the desert, a number of us here will go into the next world and come back again. And of course, what's his story? His story is his wife is actually from the other side. She came through a portal and was found in a basket and by the Kashmir, and he was brought to the exchange with Reagan for the portal for the princess. And this whole bizarre story about the fact that you can go into the other side and stuff like that.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack here. Okay, so you have Grant Cameron, who I've had on the show, wonderful guy, sits down with James Pandolfi just a few weeks ago, also had him on the show, great guy. I'm going to put a link in the description to that interview. I highly recommend checking out the full interview with Grant Cameron and James Pandolfi. And Grant saying that Ron Pandolfi is head of the Weird Desk. Now, the Weird Desk is allegedly, at the CIA, right? The Weird Desk at the CIA. But then he goes off on this saying that Ron Pandolfi, he believes his wife, right, who I showed you in that other picture, I knew we'd come back to that, right? You can see her right here. She's deemed a princess, right, has a royal background. Apparently, they found her in a basket and brought through a portal. And what? I mean, what? What are we talking about? So Ron Pandolfi made a video about his wife coming through a portal in a basket as a baby. And right? What? I mean, what are we talking about here? Right? And that it has nothing to do with UFOs. There's something else, right? It's this whole other world or something, the dimension, portals, I don't know. Right before this, Grant Cameron and James were talking about Tim Taylor, right? So maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. But that's not the point of this video. So Ron Pandolfi has his own crazy stories, right, as well. And it doesn't stop there.
And when he uses the word loon, crooks, and worse, I finally sort of thought I figured out maybe what he's talking about. And that was what I've always had the dispute of, is everybody wants to do the nuts and bolts thing. And he's saying, if you're talking nuts and bolts and anti-gravity and stuff, that's loons, crooks, and worse. That's garbage. These guys are just trying to scam the Congress.
What does he call them?
He knows it's this weird aspect of portals and stuff. Even John Alexander was being interviewed by Gaia TV, and Sid Goldberg told me that they went into the parking lot, and Sid Goldberg's always asking questions. No, another question, and John Alexander's going to his car, and then John sort of gets frustrated, and he said, "Look, it's not about the UFOs; it's about the portals." He gets in his car and drives away. And I said, "He actually said that?" And he said, "Yeah." And this is the whole deal, that in the background, you suddenly realize there's these people, and now I'm actually interacting with one. And he's maybe off duty, maybe now already retired, and then he's in this position where he may be able to do something. And I think he's talking to me because I'm a Canadian. I don't think he could really do this to me. I think I'm the only person on the internet, except for one other person, that he actually talks to on the internet. And he engages me everything I post, every single thing. You'll see his comments on there. And so now we've got this conversation with him. And I have said to him, and he actually said he actually offered me, I said, "Okay, you always say that these I'm a crook. These people are all loons. Everybody's totally nuts and they're insane and they should be in insane asylums. Okay, how about you tell us what's going on?" And he said, "Okay, give me a list of questions and we'll have a debate." And I said, "Well, no, I don't want a debate. I just want you to tell me what's going on. And right now you're on duty. And as long as you're on duty, I don't believe a thing you're saying." But this engagement is taking place, that we may actually at some point have him on the record where he actually talks, and he's supposedly the guy with the keys, and he's called himself the guy with the keys, the gatekeeper. He's the guy that may control all the classified material and finds leaks as to who's leaking and stuff. And that's where he says, like, it's loons and crooks. So if you're talking technology,
you know this individual's name?
Oh, Ron Pandolfi, yeah.
It is. Oh, yeah, that's who I thought you were describing, but I wasn't sure if you were.
Yeah, sorry, this is Ron Pandolfi.
So basically, Ron Pandolfi is the gatekeeper, holding all the keys, holding the truth about what's really going on in the UFO community, and not many people talk about him except for a few, right? And he's calling everyone techno scammers, loons, crooks. I don't know the guy. I have nothing against him. I don't know what's going on, right? I know I've seen him in the email chain. I've seen him sending emails, but everyone's sending emails and talking, smack and going back and forth and whatever, and this is Grant Cameron saying this about Ron Pandolfi as well. And so it's just very interesting, right? For sure about this guy. And again, it doesn't stop.
So there's three. There was the three guys were Art Landau was the first guy that ran the Weird Desk, and from the first thing that Ron said when he started out this kind of stuff, he said, "We have a phenomenology problem." And I've always known. That was 1991. He said that we have a phenomenology, right? He didn't say anything about UFOs. They know it. It's all connected because he has this thing with his wife and the portal, and she's got a time machine and all this kind of stuff, and it's just so wacko stuff. And now you look at it, you go like, hey, this may actually be for real. But he's disputing the thing where if people say it's aliens from other planets, he disputes all that kind of stuff. I think he's basically saying that it's way more complex than that.
But I was gonna say there's weird. Okay, again, anytime you're dealing with an individual like that, you have to tread with caution, take everything with a grain of salt. That's just a given, right?
Yeah.
But also, so Ron Pandolfi ran the Weird Desk after, Kit Green handed it over to him. And I believe it was 1984, right?
83. Yeah.
83, yeah.
And they'll dispute the weird desk. They'll say there's no weird desk. Yeah, there's no weird desk, just like there's no assassinate foreign officer's desk, and there's no there's no desk. I mean, we assume that there's no
portfolio, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So again, it's going to get even weirder. Okay, if you didn't think it could get weirder, it's going to get weirder right now. All right, so James Iandoli is about to bring up something that I was like, wait, what?
But it's noteworthy to mention that, so you have the guy who was running the Weird Desk, Ron Pandolfi, allegedly holding all these keys, but the whole time, or at least since at least the 1990s, he's been assisting Dr. Stephen Greer.
And just when you thought it couldn't get any weirder, it does. Just like I said, Stephen Greer enters the picture.
Stephen Greer's story goes that he was offered security and assistance by a high-level CIA guy. He, as Greer claims, the highest guy at CIA that deals with this kind of thing, who we know was Ron, is who he's referring to, and he Dr. Stephen Greer even slipped up in the citizens' hearing when they said, "How are you still alive?" And then Stephen Greer says, "Well, we have friends like Ron Pandolfi." So he said that publicly, and I was like, "Wow!" And then you'll see in other interviews and videos that he does, he's reading emails off from a high-level scientist who's calling all these like people like Hal and Lou and everybody techno scammers.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that's some research that you did and that I saw pieces too. And I put the pieces together. It was like, this email's from Ron Pandolfi and he's reading it on YouTube. Right. And you can, if you go to the 4-part videos of Stephen Greer talking about the Atacama humanoid and the corruption around that, that's a whole thing. But there's older stories of Stephen Greer talking about how when he was doing Project Starlight, before the Disclosure Project happened, he was offered security on an executive level, aka CIA, and that he refused it at first, originally in 1996. And then when people started dying, 3 individuals in particular that he talks about pass away, Sherry Adamak being one of them, himself got this very malignant and dangerous cancer. Everybody got it within the same month, which again he attributes to black programs, wet works, trying to take them out. I can't verify that claim, but the people did start going down around the same time, which is strange. But then he took the offer from Ron Pandolfi, again, which he doesn't name him, that he wanted the protection. And he said ever since that point that this high-level CIA guy has been running protection for him, and that's in part, assisting him.
Yeah. And Ron told me he's got protection. He's around him.
Okay, so Dr. Stephen Greer is accepting protection from the CIA, according to James here, right? And acknowledging it, right, from Ron Pandolfi, right? So Dr. Stephen Greer is getting protection from Ron Pandolfi. And that makes me think that's who's been telling Dr. Stephen Greer that Lou Elizondo is a disinformation agent, right? Because Dr. Stephen Greer has been spreading that, right? I think this is where he's getting it from, Dr. Ron Pandolfi, right? And I don't know if that's true, right? If this protection thing is true. James brought up that that Dr. Stephen Greer had outed Ron Pandolfi in this 2013 citizen hearing that happened. I went and looked. I couldn't find that, but I did find this from the same hearing, which is interesting.
Rockefeller's request for UFO disclosure was dealt with in the White House by the President's science advisor, Dr. Jack Gibbons. To prepare for the first meeting in March of 1993 with Rockefeller, Dr. Gibbons requested a UFO briefing from the CIA. That briefing was tasked at the CIA to Dr. Ronald Pandolfi. So if you want to know, that's probably the guy you should be phoning. Dr. Ronald Pandolfi, who's been identified by the New York Times as the top scientist in the CIA, and a man who is rumored inside the UFO community as the agency expert on UFOs, and a man that over the last 20 years has repeatedly interacted with many researchers inside the UFO community. As the CIA has a public position of no UFO involvement, Pandolfi gave the job of writing the White House briefing, which he knew would become public because Lawrence Rockefeller was involved. He gave that briefing job to a private UFO researcher, Mr. Bruce Maccabee, who had done a couple of UFO lunchtime talks at the CIA headquarters. The briefing, therefore, became not an official briefing on the subject, but just a personal opinion of one researcher inside the UFO community.
So, bam. Well, you got Grant Cameron, who was just in that interview with James Pandolfi at this citizen hearing. It sounds like he was the one that outed Ronald Pandolfi in that hearing, because I watched the portions with Dr. Stephen Greer. At least I searched through the transcript, and I couldn't find anything about Dr. Stephen Greer mentioning Ronald Pandolfi in that citizen hearing, which was days long, as hours and hours of footage. But I, was able to find Grant Cameron talking about it, but not Dr. Stephen Greer. But how interesting is that? Now, I think the article that Grant Cameron is referring to is this one right here. It's from December 7th, 1998, and it states this. When a Central Intelligence Agency scientist visited the Hughes Electronics Corporation in Los Angeles in 1995 to learn more about China's missile capabilities, he became concerned that the satellite manufacturer might have helped improve Chinese military capabilities. The worries of the scientist, Ronald Pandolfi, were not warmly received back at CIA headquarters. Intelligence officials now say, and the agency killed his study, called a national intelligence estimate. But today, the information gathered by Mr. Pandolfi is part of various criminal and congressional investigations looking at the transfer of American space technology to China, and more broadly at the intersection of commerce and national security in the Clinton administration. So, there you go. Now, it doesn't say anything about him being the head scientist, but there were more articles with Dr. Ron Pandolfi, so maybe somewhere in there, I don't know. But clearly he worked for the CIA or is still working for the CIA. So I don't know what any of this means, y'all. But clearly he's involved with space technology and, China and, I don't know. Is this all to cover this up, right? Is this all to just cover up national security? But Ron Pandolfi is starting to sound a little bit like Tim Taylor, right? And like I said at the beginning, the whole reason Ron Pandolfi came up in that conversation with James and Grant is because of Tim Taylor.
Then it goes to even this engagement I had with Tim Taylor, where he's sort of hinting at me this Hughes aircraft building in outside of LAX, where he's showing me these photographs, these two guys flying through space, and it's a painting. And he's asking me, he's not telling me, he's just asking me, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? And it basically was, this is where the jump room was. And I'm thinking, 2 years later, maybe, I'm thinking to myself, hey, why did you show me those photographs? Like, why was he at this Hughes aircraft building? There must be something to this. And now there's the story going around that he was part of this thing in the Bahamas, the
Nassau, Bahamas group
with the time travel thing, and we discussed before we
Townsend Brown,
and then again, right there, they jump to Ron Pandolfi. So are they connected? I don't know. All of this is very strange, and I'm not sure what to make of it, but it is quite interesting, and this was a very fun video to make. There's a lot out there. So again, I got a bunch of links in the description. Feel free to go dig through some of this extra if you want. Let me know in the comments if you have any, information about this or curious. I don't know. Whatever you want. Your feelings about it, your opinions, let me know. So, all right, y'all. We'll see you in the next video. Remember, every day's a gift, y'all. Peace.
I live inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in the cradles, profanities. I see the world through ice covered in ink and bleach. Cross out the ones who heard my cries and watched me weep.